But today's been a phenomenal event. As I look around, 1,600 people, gosh, this place is amazing. When we look at the amount of ideas and energy and relationships and connections that have been made, I'm so curious about what's going to happen when we leave here. I'm so curious about that because, see, I believe that every person has an amazing story. I believe that every person has phenomenal gifts and abilities and talents that no one else has, just like you. So I'm really curious, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about. As we celebrate curiosity in this TED event, I have one question that I want to sprinkle and flavor the rest of my talk with. What would happen if we all decided to follow our curiosity and our natural instincts that are within each of us right now? How much more different would our decisions be as we start to make them? Man, I could imagine us changing this community and changing this whole world. Because you see me, everything great in my life has simply happened when I just followed my curiosity. You know, when I was young, I was standing outside the bathroom one day, and my Uncle Thomas was getting dressed, and he had a big date that night. And I didn't understand what was going on, but there was a lot of energy coming from inside of the room. And as I sat there and as I listened, I said, wow, what's going on in there? And I went up to the door, and I heard these words. Woo-wee! Wait till she smells this on me tonight. Woo! Tonight is going to be my night. And my right ear, it just got bigger and bigger. And I leaned against the door, and click, click, he started to open the door, and I stood beside it, and he walked off, and I made sure he walked off. And I snuck into the bathroom. And as soon as I walked into the bathroom, I went straight to the cabinet. And when I went straight over to the cabinet, I opened it up. And there was a secret. A big industrial-sized bottle of Old Spice. All I knew was that he was tremendously excited about what was going on. So I said, wait a minute. I started to formulate my plan. Yeah, I was only in the second or third grade, but, my curiosity, it bothered me then, and it's, I asked my wife, she's got to deal with it today. So you know what, the next morning when I woke up to go to school, I stopped past the bathroom before I walked out. And I said, wait a minute, if it worked for Uncle Thomas, I got to do exactly what he did. So I walked up, and I looked in the mirror, and I said, wait till they see me at the bus stop today. And I took it out, and I put it on. And I wanted to make sure it worked, so I sprinkled a little bit more. And I said, oh, my God. And I started coughing. But you know what? I knew it was working because as soon as I got to the bus stop, the whole place just cleared out. And I definitely knew it was working because as soon as I took those 2 steps up on the bus, I turned, and on the bus is generally packed. I don't know about the bus you rode to school. We had to fight for seats. But oh, no, not today. Morris Morrison was getting preferential treatment. The first few rows just completely cleared out as soon as I stepped on the bus. But you know what? My Uncle Thomas's words came back to my mind. I said, he said, wait till she smells this on me. I said, wait a minute, I got to find my she. There she was. 4 rows back. I walked, Amber Huff. And I sat right beside her, and I just looked at her. And she said, I smell you. You do? What I smell like? You smell like my daddy. And I said, wait a minute, is that a good thing? She said, I love my daddy. I said, yes, Uncle Thomas was right. Follow my curiosity. Oh my God, I love my Uncle Thomas. He's awesome. Some of the best moments don't follow my curiosity, but let me tell you something. A lot of good, funny stories, but following your curiosity, it also helps you in some of the toughest times of adversity in your life as well. Because you see, the last thing I really remembered as I stood beside my grandmother's bed and I held her hand, the doctor's words playing in my head over and over again, and he said this, Morris, make sure you talk to your grandmother. Make sure you talk to her because just because she's unresponsive, I think that she can hear what you're saying. There's no studies or data to show whether she can't, so just talk to her. And as I held her hand, and all I could think about was losing my mother and my father and being orphaned in New York City the first time. And this is my great aunt, the lady who rescued me, the lady who I call grandma. She was my everything. And now I'm about to say goodbye to her. What do you do? What do you do in that situation? I stood there, and I probably did what many of you would do. I begged her not to leave me. And then I saw her lip quiver, and a tear came down her right cheek. And at that moment, I knew that she could hear every single word that I was saying. Now what do? This is a monologue. This is a one-way conversation. I made every single promise in the world. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to do something with the opportunities that you gave me. I don't know how, but thank you for what you did. And when I walked down into the parking lot, as I stopped and I turned and I looked up at the 8th floor and the last room on the right-hand side, I saw them cut the light out. And as soon as that light switch flipped, a switch flipped inside of me. I fell in love truly for the first time. I fell in love with one thought and with one idea that I became more curious about that would change the rest of my life. I just sat there and I made all these promise tours about being successful. But I have no idea what that really means. How am I going to be successful? What is successful? What does it mean to be successful anyway? And as I sat there, all I know when I look back years later, I've asked every single person that I could run into. I've talked to CEOs, I've talked to homeless people, I've talked to black people, white people, big people, little people, you name it. I asked anyone that I could, how did you get where you're at? Successful people always told me, I always found out two things from really successful people. First of all, there's no true definition of success. And following your instincts and your curiosity, that's what makes you successful. Because every single one of them would continue to tell me, they say, you know what? I don't know how I got here. All I know is my gut told me, and I made the turn, and I've never been disappointed. But consequently, every single time I talk to an unsuccessful person, the story would go like this. I knew I shouldn't have bought that house. Well, something told me to start that business, but I never did. Or, I knew I should have married her sister instead. That's what the dialogue was like. As a matter of fact, on my way here to the TED conference, I sat beside a lady who's one of the top professors at one of the top colleges of medicine, a big university here in this country. And we had a great dialogue about successful med students and providers later on who really made big impacts in the real world. And so I asked her, I said, how do you know? How do you know? And she said, well, there's no clear way to really know, but she said, I can tell which ones are going to be successful. She said, because I asked them one question. She said, I asked them, what type of adversity have you been through in your life? What have you ever had to overcome? And then I said, why do you ask medical students that question? She said, because they've been thinking with analytical and technical skills and living in a box their whole life, reading a textbook, taking a test, passing organic, and now they're great and they got into medical school. She said, but here, they may be in a medical school class with one of 200 other people. And they're going to be force ranked because you better believe at the end of that year, someone's graduating top of that class. And someone's going to graduate at the very end of the class. Very bottom of the list, I'm sorry. And she said, some of them can't take that comparison. She said, that's enough to break some of them and completely change their majors and change their lives. And because they may have had mother and father who expected them to be doctors, some of them can't even go home, so they can't be a part of the 85%. But you know what? She reminded me of something that I heard a lady named Mrs. Geraldine Belmere say when I was little. She said, all unhappiness in life is caused by comparison. I said, what? All unhappiness in life is caused by comparison. You can never really be unhappy with something unless you're relatively comparing it to something that you shouldn't be comparing it to. And as a motivational speaker, as I travel and I get emails and people stay connected with me, people say, the number one thing you said that I never will forget is that quote you said about comparing people. You know why? Because comparisons, it depends on how you look at it. So this picture shows that would the orange not be relative just because it's compared to something else that's different? See, when you start to compare yourself to other people, you start to think that you do not have value. And when you think you don't have value, you won't have confidence, and the confidence that's necessary for you to follow your own instincts and your own curiosity. And you know what? Once that confidence is diminished, you can forget about it. Because I've been married for 2 years now. And I've gotten a new education that nobody told me I was going to get. Oh, y'all know what's coming. I get the privilege of going shopping with my wife every now and then. And you see, I'm trying to get the Husband of the Year award, so I don't sit outside the store. I go into the dressing room with her, and I sit on that little chair by the mirrors. And you know what? I turn into Scooby-Doo every time I go because she walks out with the same question. Did these jeans make me look fat? What are we supposed to say to that? But you know what? In being in that scenario enough times, I realized something. Hey, guys, we try on clothes completely different than women do. Yeah, and guys will. It doesn't matter if it's a young teenager with all this swag Or if it's a guy who's in his 50s or 60s and his name is Tom or Bob and he's trying on a suit jacket at Joseph A. Banks. It's all the same. Guys, we start squared up with the mirror and we'll kind of look at it. And before you know it, fellas, we may even turn to the side and do the little look and the hand will go out. And then before you know it, our chin will go down. Hey, guys, what's that thing we do with our chin anyway? What is that? But as soon as our chin goes up, yeah, I'll take this in a large, please. Thank you very much. Yeah, cool. But see, women, you all have a completely different approach. Women have a 4-step approach to even trying on jeans, and it's all about confidence. Oh, I've seen it enough. My wife, she's got it down. First step, 1, 2, 3, 4. Ladies, what is it that you all are looking for down there? Do you think certain jeans just make certain parts of your body disappear? But I realize it doesn't matter if my wife is trying on a watch or a scarf or even shoes. If I go to 9 West with her, it's the same step. 1, 2, 3, turn, she'll look at the shoes, and before you know it, she's looking back there. I never quite understood it, but now I get it though. I get it, especially when we look at comparisons, because listen, we do all of that so that we can convince ourselves first in the morning before we leave our house. We've all had those days when we only had that one outfit left and it was dirty and we have to wear it so we feel completely uncomfortable all day. We're walking past everyone at work saying, sorry, I can't talk right now. I have to get going to my office. It's happened to all of us at a certain point in time. And that confidence is important because there's been a new term that's been coined over the past 20 years called emotional intelligence. A lot of study and a lot of research has been done on it. And the leading thought leader, one of the top gurus, psychologists, his name is Daniel Goleman. And Daniel Goleman, along with his research foundation, the Consortium for Research on Emotional Intelligence, they looked at EQ as what they call it, and they said at times when it comes to individual performance, it's far more important than IQ is. And a lot of people began to argue with them, so they did a big study. And they looked at over 200 companies and organizations. And when they looked at these companies, they looked at the top performers inside of the organizations as a cross-section. And they tried to figure out why they were performing better than the average employees there. And in every single one of the top performers, they had twice the amount of measured emotional intelligence. And it was statistically double the amount of cognitive and technical skills in IQ. Now, not saying that IQ isn't important, but emotional intelligence is important because people that are high in emotional intelligence, what they say is this. They say, you can understand your own emotions and others' emotions better. And when you do that, it changes the way you make decisions. So then you have more confidence because at the cornerstone of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. So when you become self-aware, the factors with that are realistic assessments and judgments that you make and also increase self-confidence. And that's why emotional intelligence is so important. And you know, people come up to me after all the time and it's like, you know, like I'm a dealer or something. And they'll whisper and they'll say, hey, Morris, hey, where can I get some of that emotional intelligence at? You know that emotional intelligence you was talking about? And I said, hey, listen, because the question is, can it be learned? And you know what? Here's what's interesting. The limbic system is the place in the brain where the key neurotransmitters produce what's needed for heightened emotional intelligence. So you have your amygdala, you've got your hypothalamus, your thalamus, your hippocampus, your pineal glands. It's all right there. But unfortunately, the focus of our brain, which is the neocortex, that's what a lot of our educational design focuses on. So a lot of analytical and technical skills and grasping key concepts and logic. Unfortunately, a lot of our education is forced there. So that's why the medical student can get straight A's and pass organic chemistry with flying colors, but then not know what to happen, not know what to do when a patient runs in, and then they have no idea what to do next because they haven't been forced to step out of their box yet. And it can be learned. You know, one of the best stories I've ever heard of emotional intelligence? I have a little cousin, Dale, and his little brother, Demir. I call him Captain Dale and Mir. We had them at the house, and they were swimming with us. And we were at a big pool, and we were the only ones there. Now, before we went to Dick's Sporting Goods, and we got them both little baby vests so they could just swim and float and do whatever they wanted to do because they couldn't swim. And what's interesting is that Captain Dale, he started to swim. And after a couple hours, he said, Cousin Morris, I can swim. I said, Dale, you really can't swim. No, I can do it. And I said, well, here's a strong teachable moment. I'm not going to pass up on this. He takes the life vest off. And right when he runs and he goes to jump in the deep end, little Mir goes, no! And he looked up at me and he said, Cousin Morris. And I said, what's wrong, Mir? Come here. It's okay. He's going to be all right. And he said, Dale. I said, what's wrong with Dale? Him going to die. He can't swim. I said, it's okay. I'm here. I'll grab him. And sure enough, Captain Dale, he jumped right into the water. He sank to the bottom. He was standing a few feet away from me. Now, I didn't grab him right away because I'm never one to pass up on a teachable moment. I let him struggle for a minute. So I reached and I grabbed him and I pulled him back. He was coughing and he was crying, and I put the towel around him and he sat on the edge of the water. And as soon as he dried off, he jumped right back in the water. He repeated this process over and over again for about a half hour. And before you know it, Captain Dale started floating. And before you know it, he started swimming across the deep end of the water. And before I knew it, Mir said, he was swimming. Look. Mir, off with the life jacket. Demir's going to jump in. I said, Demir, stop. And he goes, I can swim. Dale can swim. I can swim. And then Dale looked at me and he said, it's okay, Cousin Morris. I'm the big brother. Within 2 hours, I saw two little brothers, a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old, who didn't know how to swim, learn it instantly. Dale had a heightened sense of emotional intelligence. He was self-aware. He was more confident. That is why he just jumped in. Now, Demir represents a lot of other people who are out there who actually need to see it modeled first. We've got great people like Steve Jobs, who we've talked about the reality distortion field. Demir represents the people who need to see it modeled first before they can believe that it really is possible. But Dale, he jumped in. I've never been more inspired because you see, ever since that day in the hospital, since I had my curious moment of what it meant to be curious and follow my dreams, I knew I wanted to be a professional speaker and I wanted to help organizations and individuals live their life and be who they were really called to be. And I started speaking a while ago while I was still working in corporate America, but I didn't have the courage to jump. When I saw Captain Dale jump, it changed everything. And you know, the last thing I remember today, literally, it's been a blur. Last thing I remember is handing my resignation letter in. And ever since then, our organization is growing. We are having a bunch of fun. And just last year, someone sent me a picture that I'd never seen before. And when I saw this picture, tears immediately came to my eyes. Yes, I thought about my grandmother who sacrificed to give me an opportunity, but I realized something on that day. It had been inside of me the whole entire time. I just needed to jump. And I was scared. And it's inside of you. And I know for a fact, 1,600 people today at one of the biggest TED conferences here ever on the East Coast, we can start a powerful change if we all stop comparing ourselves to other people, and if we all think that we're valuable, and if we think that we matter. And if we follow our curiosity and our instincts, we have an opportunity to represent exactly what it is the TED platform is about. We could all contribute some phenomenal ideas that together could definitely be some ideas worth spreading. Thank you.